Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brenda Josephs, and I'm a consultant with Proactive Seniors. Thank you so much for joining me and my friend Teresa Merryfield today for this virtual chat about taking emotional care of you and your heart. We're going to be recording this video, and we'll send out a link afterward to everyone who registered, as well as posting it on our website. We'll also be sharing a handout with some key ideas and resources from the topic today. So if you're in the Witness Protection Program, you may want to turn off your video. Otherwise, Teresa and I would love to see your faces. We have a few slides to share in the beginning, but the rest of the webinar will just be an informal chat. We're going to leave some time at the end for discussion, and we welcome you to share in this conversation. If you don't feel comfortable talking on camera, by all means, use the little chat box to share your comments and questions. February seems like the perfect time, considering it's Heart and Stroke Month, and we just went through Valentine's Day and Family Day. It seems like the perfect time to talk about sharing the love with your own heart. So thank you for joining us today. I'm going to start with a quick introduction to Proactive Seniors. I know that our fearless and amazing leader and founder, Kathy Mendham, is here with us today, as well as some other members of our team. So I want to acknowledge them and thank them for their support today. Proactive Seniors is an advisory service. We help seniors and their families to understand, navigate, and access senior support programs, housing, and services. Our advisors are located in Calgary, Edmonton, and Kelowna. We all have extensive backgrounds in senior care, seniors housing, and healthcare, and we share a common passion to ensure that seniors and their families have the support they need to thrive, be happy, healthy, safe, and enjoy their time together. I'll talk very briefly about the specific services we offer. First, Proactive Seniors Planning helps to ensure that seniors who want to stay home or return home have a detailed action plan on how to be successful in that environment. Our Seniors Housing Support ensures that seniors who want to or need to move to a more supportive living setting are able to find the location that is their best fit to optimize their health and happiness. You may not know that Calgary has over 200 supportive living options. Navigating that journey can be overwhelming. In fact, our next webinar in March deals specifically with this topic, making the decision to move to senior living. Our dementia care coaching ensures that families who are caring for a loved one with dementia have access to ongoing and personal support during that challenging journey. Our family support is an intermittent support, such as accompanying seniors to appointments. I don't know, those of you who were with us from the beginning heard Judy describe an experience of taking one of our clients out shopping. So we basically fill the gaps with this service, the gaps that are not met through public health, home care, or other services available. And finally, we offer occupational therapy and physical therapy. On our team, we have therapists, professionals that are able to provide mobile treatment or intervention for our clients as needed. So today, the conversation today is with my friend, as I said in the beginning, Teresa Merryfield. I met Teresa just over 3 years ago. She walked into my seniors community with some burning questions about the industry's relationship development and basic engagement in the senior living environment for the residents. And the rest, as they say, is history. Teresa has been a practicing coach, a celebrated speaker, and an acclaimed workshop facilitator for more than a decade, mainly in the area of relationship dynamics with a side focus on grief and loss. With the death of her own husband 6 years ago, Teresa supported her own emotional health by taking advantage of the Alberta Health Services Grief Support Program. Once she completed this program, Teresa was invited back to apply her coaching and facilitation skills to work as a volunteer facilitator for these groups. She continues this work to this day. Well acquainted with supporting others in their journey to stronger emotional health, including my own, I knew that Teresa would be my perfect co-presenter today. Please join me in welcoming speaker, trainer, and senior whole health enthusiast, Teresa Merryfield. Welcome, Teresa.
Oh, Brenda, that's such a great introduction. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, we're certainly happy to have you. As we said in the intro, I think this is a timely time to have a discussion about emotional health. But I guess the best place to start is to talk about what exactly is emotional health.
So maybe more easily recognized by talking about what is not emotional health or a good emotional healthy state. And you touched on it in the introduction with the death of my husband. So let's roll back the clock to February of 2013. And I got the phone call and he said it's bad news. And what his bad news was that he was diagnosed with pleural mesothelioma, which is asbestos cancer, but it was stage 4. So he was diagnosed initially palliative. At that time, I had a coaching clientele. I finished off with my clients, and the task was now to take care of him until the end. The end was 18 months later. Now, when I say take care of him, he managed his process of dying and his process of disease and his process of living with that disease. And I managed everything else. And I thought I was doing a pretty good job. The balls were all in the air and I was juggling madly to keep everything in place. And the problem with a palliative patient or loved one is that all the balls in the air are glass. you can't drop anything. But we were managing. We were making it through, and I was the queen of the control, the remote control, and I was taking care of his life. And then he passed. And as much as you think you're ready, you're never ready. And so I was out of a full-time job. I was out of a partner that we'd spent more than 30 years together. I was out a shared history. There was many compounded losses. And within 3 months, I felt as though I was drowning. So when you ask about emotional health, what does it look like? Life is a strict teacher, and I can tell you what it does not look like, because I made all of the mistakes that are possible to make with my own emotional health. Now, imagine it, 8 years of being a coach for other people so that they could be healthy emotionally and mentally and physically and spiritually. And there I am, as flat as a pancake, little grease spot on the floor. And I had to reach out. So that's one of the things, that's one of the resiliencies that we have to keep in our back pocket. But I can tell you about the mistakes that I made along the way. In the 18 months that we were focused on his health, his life, his everything,
right,
I did not take care of checking in with myself on a daily basis. So that's one of the emotional resiliencies. How am I doing spiritually? Am I feeding myself? How am I doing mentally? How am I doing physically? And most importantly, how am I doing emotionally?
Mm-hmm.
And because I didn't have that structure in place as we were going through that 18-month timeline, it was all on him, all on him. I ended up at the end with, I was probably a 1 or a 0 out of 10 on how emotionally healthy I was.
Mm-hmm.
I was peanut butter by the truckload, and peanut butter, I don't know why, but peanut butter was my comfort food of choice.
Peanut butter is comfort food, yeah, exactly.
And I was doing a lot of sleeping. Okay, so how do you push yourself out of the hole?
Yeah, how did you do it?
Right. So I reached out. Within 3 months, I had called. The last thing they do when you leave the hospital for the last time, the thing that they do is they hand you this brochure packet full of information, great information. And I happened to pull out a brochure about the grief support program. So Calgary has a beautiful Alberta Health Services offering for grief support. And so I reached out to them. So number one, talk to somebody. Pick up the phone. be brave. It only takes 5 seconds of bravery to dial the number and say, I need some help. So that's the first thing. The other thing is, I think one of the things is to move. Even if it's micro. When you take a look at micro, macro, small versus large, the movement might be a very small thing.
Mm-hmm.
So within a period of time, I began to move again. My thoughts were all confused and tangled.
Yeah.
As is often the case with grief. And if we get to a certain age, we have all experienced a grief event, and sometimes many grief events on top of each other. It gets layered and thick. And so coming back, I had to develop a social system by which I could talk to friends that would listen and not listen to solve. Mm-hmm. And this is really important. If you don't have that person, reach out. I'm sure that Proactive Seniors has a program that can help you out just to listen, or to listen to your senior parent, or to listen to the one that you care for.
Yeah, you're so right, Teresa. Listening is absolutely one of the most valuable skills when dealing with anyone, especially people that are going through emotional struggles and challenges. I think a lot of people think that emotional health equals mental health, but that's not necessarily the case, I wouldn't say. No. Although mental health is certainly a component of emotional health, I think what emotional health looks like in people is the ability to be in tune with what you're feeling, right? Yeah.
If you have these feelings, what are you doing with them?
Yes, yeah, for sure.
Right. How are you managing them?
And it's not really an absence of negative emotion, right? I mean, you can't go through something that all of us have been through, or certainly what you've been through in your life, and not experience some negative emotion. Is being able to face it and move through it, I think.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that we live in a happiness culture.
Yeah.
So we look for that happiness quotient in each other, but we sort of negate the other things that might be happening. And so, again, just being in touch with yourself. How am I doing physically today? How am I doing emotionally today? What am I doing emotionally to support myself? Are there tips and tricks that I use to be able to feel better in a day? Mm-hmm. It might be something really simple like a hot shower, or taking a break and listening to some music, or like the simple things are the things that are so effective but often forgotten.
So what would you say the benefits of being emotionally healthy are? I mean, you're a relationship coach. I'm assuming being emotionally healthy is a good thing for relationships.
Our relationships improve, like across the board. So a relationship with spouse, with family, with your own kids, grandkids perhaps, all of those relationships improve if we're emotionally healthy. So relationships is one thing. Being able to navigate in the world if we're emotionally strong is, there's a marked difference between somebody who's not coping well and somebody who is coping well, or somebody who's not using the tools and is using the tools. And I sort of think of resiliencies as a toolkit. It's like we carry it around all the time. How many tools have we lent out versus how many tools do we still have that we can use with ourselves?
Yeah, and I think people too have the understanding on some level that resilience is something that you either have or you don't have. And that's not really true, is it? Resilience is a skill that you can build and continue to build throughout your life. And hopefully you are doing that.
Well, and that's exactly it. It's something that you can grow. And you use the ones that feel right for you, because it's something that might be a resiliency for me, or a tool that I use in my resiliency toolkit is different than the resiliencies that you use. Some of us like to bake, some of us like to clean, some of us like to drive. It just depends on the thing that gives you joy. Joy and happiness are two different things, right? Happiness is external and joy is internal. It's what I feel in my heart. That's joy. Mm-hmm. Happiness is the external reflection of that.
And I think we have to be aware of how harshly we judge ourselves too, don't we? Really?
Do you have that voice in your head
That
too?
little voice that says, "What the heck were you thinking when you did that?" Yeah. Like you have to be aware and stop that little voice, right?
Well, that little voice can be a tiger, and it can really take over our lives, and especially if we're listening to that negative bias all the time. And sometimes it's just good to say, okay, thank you very much for your opinion, and then put it aside and move on to something that makes you a little bit happier.
Well, because I think you said it to me the other day when we were talking, that little voice inside your head isn't always your own. Sometimes it can belong to somebody else.
It can be an espoused voice. So it might be the voice of your mom or your dad, even if they've been gone for decades. My dad's been gone for more than 3 decades, and he still has a place in the voice patterns in my head. It might be a primary school teacher, somebody who had a position of authority, an aunt or an uncle in our life. And that might add to our own little voice in our head, but it might not all be you. It might be an espoused voice as well. So one of the good things that you can do is ask yourself, does this belong to me? Is this voice my voice, or is this voice somebody else's voice?
And if this is my voice, is this the way somebody who really cares about me would talk to me?
Right? We're often harder on ourselves than we are on strangers.
Yes.
Or on our loved ones. Yeah. And if I had a nickel for every time I heard somebody else say, that was the dumbest thing I've ever done. Well, no, maybe the restructure of that language to say, that was a great learning experience. And I learned a lot more now than I did then.
Yeah. We just keep learning. One hopes, hey?
One hope.
What can we do as people today? What can we do to improve our emotional health? Do you have some ideas, some tips?
Well, I think that often people jump this question from the point of view of making huge sweeping changes.
Yeah.
And I don't think that you have to make huge sweeping changes. I think it's just the very little things. I think it's just making one small tweak to whatever the plan is for the day to turn it around a little bit. You know, you can't turn a ship 180 degrees going the other direction in a moment. I think it takes very small incremental micro changes. And so the positive things that we can do, I mentioned it before, listening to music. If you like to read something that makes you profoundly happy. Listening to TV can anesthetize, it can switch off our brains if they're overactive, but it's just as effective to get an adult coloring book and do some coloring. To get creative. Getting creative is one of the things that I think is really important in providing a good platform for mental health for yourself or emotional health for yourself.
Speaking of getting creative, I want to stop you there, and I want you to, because one of the things on our list of tools for people's toolboxes is to try a new hobby. So I'd like you, and I know Judy, one of our team, is going to share some of the creative stuff that she does, but I'd like you to share something that you've started recently, because I just think it's a great idea. I love it.
So I would be one of the adult humans that would have said, paint by number. Are you kidding me? It's for kids. Well, this COVID Christmas, I picked up a paint by numbers canvas. I have had so much fun with this. It is an incredible outlet for your artistic ability, and you get something at the end of it.
But you're not just doing it by yourself, though. Like, tell everybody what you're doing. You're doing paint night, virtual paint night.
We do. Once a week, I get together with my pals, and we all got a canvas with whatever the canvas was that was happy for us. And we get together for at least 2 hours a week. And if we can squeak in a second meeting, we try and get in another hour or two. And we sit together, listening to each other's stories and painting as we go. So it's really not about the painting. It's about getting together, doing something collectively creative, having something at the end of the road for the effort that you've put in. But we laugh and we talk. And some of us drink wine, and some of us drink tea, and it's just a great way to connect. And it's a lot about connection.
Mm-hmm.
More about connection than putting paint into little numbered splotches.
And that's one of the points that we have about working on your emotional health as well, is to connect with others. You're not alone. To grow your circle of friends or spend time with people that really lift you up, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Whether or not you're artistic or have any artistic talents or not.
Right? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you get the colors wrong. It doesn't matter if you've gone completely off base with your project. The deal is that connecting with other human beings is the thing that is going to support your emotional health.
Well, and I know, you and I don't get to see each other very often, but every Tuesday I have my Tuesday with Teresa, and we meet virtually just like this and have a coffee, and it's great. It's great. Yeah. So I guess we should, like just to talk a little bit more about some of the things people can do. I mean, be kind to yourself, right? That's one of the biggest points. Now is not the time to strive for perfection, but instead for forgiveness and flexibility.
Give yourself a break.
Yeah.
Give yourself a break.
Give yourself a break. That's right. Emotional regulation, like trying things like meditation or journaling. We talked a little bit already about talking to somebody that you trust. Exercise, of course, that always seems to come up whenever anybody talks about any sort of well-being, physical, emotional, mental. It all seems to come back to moving. I think you said that right at the beginning. To connect with others, to try a new hobby, to eat and drink healthfully and in moderation, right? Maybe not the jar of peanut butter beside your bed every day.
Oh, that's
but a peanut butter sandwich is still good, right? Or a glass of wine at 5 o'clock, maybe not a bottle of wine, but a glass of wine. I live in Kelowna, so we have to drink wine. It's part of, it's part of the entry.
It's part of the culture.
It's part of the culture, absolutely. So we also talked a little bit about meditation. We mentioned that in terms of that being one of the tools. And I know that you told me you had this little trick that you did to try and get yourself emotionally centered. Like, can you explain that to everybody, how that works?
After Pete died, one of the first things, after Pete died, one of the first things that I noticed was that it took me about a year to take a full breath, like a full deep breath of air, so that I thought, it was so noticeable that I thought, I can breathe. And it was about 12 months after he passed. But breathing meditation, and meditation can be a scary word. It doesn't need to be a scary word. I have a 1-minute meditation. And the 1-minute meditation is a breath meditation. And it's breathing in through your nose to the count of 4, holding your breath for seven, the count of 7, and then breathing out to the count of 8, and then starting again. In for 4, hold for 7, out for 8, in for 4. Okay, so we get the idea. We can all count 4, 7, and 8. What it does is it affects your body in such a calming way that it's just like, and it helps you get centered and focused, and it helps your mind from stopping the gerbil on the the mouse on the wheel. It just allows your mind space to be calm.
Mm-hmm.
And I use it before bed and when I get up first thing in the morning. And if there's any upsetting thing during the day, I'll also use it again during the day. And it takes 1 minute. You can do the stoplight, and it just changes your entire day. But I think that you've got one that's a little bit different from mine, Brenda.
Yeah, the one I use, very similar idea. It's called boxed breathing, where you breathe in for 4, you hold for 4, you exhale for 4, and then you hold that for 4 as well. It's the same idea, and it's like, just like you, I use it as a tool to stop my mind from when I wake up in the middle of the night and I can't get back to sleep because my mind's going crazy thinking about all the things I want to do. that's the tool that I use. And just so everybody knows, I'll be sharing these resources and some links to these types of meditations as well. Just if you're interested in that. So, but yeah, those are just some, I guess, just a couple of examples of the many things that you can do. There's lots out there, lots of resources available for that kind of thing. And I think those types of tools are very helpful in terms of emotional well-being and your health.
Yeah.
So we're getting near the end of our time. Was there anything that we didn't cover off in terms of emotional health that we wanted to?
Emotional health is a huge area. It really, this could be a weekend workshop.
Yes.
I think the most important thing is check in with yourself regularly. How am I doing emotionally? How am I doing mentally? How am I doing physically? How am I doing spiritually? To use tools, any tool that's available to you, and we all have tools at our fingertips. Pick up a pen and pick up a notebook and journal. Just talk about thoughts, feelings, ideas, things that bring you joy, gratitude. There are people that have gratitude journals. And if your gratitude has to be so small that it's something like hot running water. I am grateful every day for a hot running water shower, because I remember the stories of my grandmother having to heat water on the stove. So hot running water, I am so grateful for that. A stove that works, a washer dryer, like, I guess, start from either the top end, the easiest things that you can think of, to the most complicated, or start from the complicated things and work backwards. But it's easy and it's inexpensive way to get your mind free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know I do that every day. Every morning I think of the 5 things that I'm grateful for. Usually my husband tops that list, but now I know hot running water is going to be one of those items as well on the days that I really have to reach. So thank goodness there's not many of those. But well, thank you so much, Teresa, for joining us for this conversation. I know I've loved having it, and I hope everyone else that's joined us today has enjoyed listening to it. And as I said, here we are at the end. Want to invite anybody that has any suggestions or comments, or or just some tips for what they do to keep their emotional health, their emotional ship on the straight and narrow. And I know Judy said that she would share some of her creative ideas with us, some of the things that she does to stay emotionally well during these times. So Judy, if anybody that wants to unmute themselves or type in the chat if they'd like to make a comment, please do. But Judy, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, can you guys hear me?
You bet.
Okay, so I was taking notes. I had a few things written down, but you two ladies covered a bunch of them already. I'll just quickly touch on what I personally do. I have a passion for nature photography, and that's my big one. And I've got to say that a few years ago, I was talking to a psychologist who my family doctor recommended me to talk to in the clinic. And I remember saying to her, I just need to learn to meditate. Like, I just need to stop right in the middle of the chaos and kind of go, and I said, but I can't do it. And I never remember. And it doesn't relax me. And then I got off on this conversation about the only time that the whole world and every issue in my life disappears is when I take my camera and I go for a walk in nature. And I realized during that conversation, she helped me see. She said, Judy, chill. That's your meditation. And, because I am so focused on just what's right in front of me, what I'm looking at, what I'm looking for. And so nature photography is a big one for me. And then I'm learning watercolor painting, which apparently painters say, why did you choose watercolor? That's the hardest one. So, which only makes me more determined to figure out how to do it. So, but I guess it's just the creative part. So I love to do that. and I'm seeking out touching up on my poetry skills. So, you know, I really enjoy doing that because I incorporate poetry and photography. And but I have a friend who's very much not creative, and she likes to sort of throw that in once in a while when she's, you know, and so I like to sort of backpedal a little bit, because for people that aren't creative, and it is just, you know, finding that thing. Like, I made a couple of notes. For example, Teresa made a comment about move, and I immediately went to the idea, because another thing that I'm really finding is a huge difference for me is I go for a 30-minute walk every single day. And I've always enjoyed doing something, being outside, you know, exercise, whatever, working out, sports all my life. So it's not a difficult thing for me to do, but it was the consistency over the last quite a while. So at the end of November, I started going, and I think since then, for a couple of really important reasons, I missed like 2 days since the end of November, including that recent cold snap where I was the only human being out walking at -30 at night, because I've also discovered I love to go at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, much to the horror of my husband, who's relieved when I return. But I had more layers on. I was like, I'm going. I'd come back all frosted up, but I now have to do it. And a couple of days ago, I went earlier, like I went late afternoon, right before I made supper. And I thought, like, I felt ripped off. It's daylight, there's more traffic, there's more people, there's chaos going on. And so I said, no, I actually really like the night walking, and it's peaceful and very serene.
Judy, one of our webinar attendees has asked you a question about your photography. She wonders if you need a fancy camera for that.
Nope. Not at all. Like, even, well, you know, depending on what that person has, I mean, if you see something you want to capture with a picture and you use your phone, you know, because it depends. I don't know, like for me, it's because I do other things with the photography, but I don't have a fancy camera. And so what I learned with the photography is that if I go out with somebody who's not necessarily into photography, what they end up appreciating is, like, I had someone say to me that they've never noticed trees more than when they went out for a walk with me one time, and she said, I just had no idea of how to enjoy the variety of trees that are out there. So
I can see how that would be mesmerizing with you. Another one of our attendees has actually said, I'm writing a genealogical family history, and he's on page 137. Bill, is that going to be 137 out of 500, or how far does page 137 take you? I'm curious.
Well, it's close to being finished. So it's an interesting project. I'm getting some help from one of my brothers, and it's a challenging project because some things are being revealed that I was not aware of as I do this research.
Wow.
So I live in Auburn, Alabama.
Oh, wow. Welcome. Nice to see you. It's a beautiful thing about these webinars. You're definitely not restricted as to geography. So we're so pleased to have you. Thanks for joining us today and for sharing your creative way of staying emotionally healthy. Kathy, did you want to share something with us about your? Go ahead.
I've got to unmute. Can you hear me now?
Can hear you.
Yeah, so much appreciate this wonderful information, Teresa and Brenda. One of the things I jotted down as you were talking about the breathing that I found is so important to me, for sure, because I always look at things from the physiological perspective. That's just where my mind goes. But when I'm anxious or feeling stressed out, I do notice that my breathing gets shallower and shallower, and I'm breathing up here, up in my upper chest. And what happens when you do that is you're not getting very much oxygen into your blood. And so the other symptom that I notice when I'm anxious is my heart starts racing. And I'm quite sensitive to things like coffee and chocolate. So I have kind of a sensitive disposition that way. And when my heart starts racing, you feel even more anxious. And it's a bit of a vicious circle. And if I just take a deep breath and get some oxygen down into my lungs, and the oxygen gets out into my bloodstream, my heart rate slows down. And it's an instantaneous fix, and it makes me feel better within just moments. And so to me, it's just the most obvious solution to feeling tight and anxious and breathing quickly and my heart racing is to take a few really deep breaths. And I have one of those watches that will remind me every hour or so. It just gives me a little chime and it says breathe. And it's a really great reminder. So I just encourage people to really think about breathing. It makes a huge difference in my management of my, stress or worry or concern that I might have in a day.
And it's such a great tip, Kathy, because I don't think that people always think about breathing. Mm-hmm. They just do it. They take it for granted. Mm-hmm. And so when they're not doing it the way they should, exactly as you were talking about, even as Teresa was talking about when she was sharing her story, is she felt like she couldn't take a deep breath. Mm-hmm. She was just breathing so shallowly, right? That's right, Teresa. Would you say that's what was going on for you? Yeah. Yeah. So just thinking about being aware of your breathing.
Mm-hmm. And it affects your whole body, it affects everything. So, and it probably affects your brain too, because if you're not getting enough oxygen in your bloodstream and it makes your heart beat faster, you're probably not getting enough oxygen in your brain either. And so then you might feel foggy or sluggish or dopey. And so, the deep breathing probably affects many, many systems. In fact, it definitely affects many systems. So it's a really great tip. It's simple, but it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. It's great. Thank you so much, Kathy. Is there anyone else? Oh, who's joined a poetry group, even though I made poor grades?
Nice. Right on.
There you go. Poor grades in literature in high school and college, and I've only ever written 2 poems in my life. I think, Judy, you said you're writing poetry as well? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was in a webinar, it was something not long ago, and they said something that really stuck with me. And that what they said was, to have a full day, I want to move, create, connect, and learn. And if I've done all 4 of those things in one day, then I've had a great day. And I think that's so perfect. It really sums up everything that we've been talking about today. And I see Judith wants to say something. Judith, unmute yourself and join us.
I was just thinking about what Kathy said in terms of the breathing. And one of the activities I find the most useful is yoga, because it's a combination of the stretching and also breathing together, both of them working together. And you can do that online. There are courses you can take online during this pandemic. And the second thing one of my colleagues taught me was self-affirmations. And she said just to take the sticky notes and at some time during the day, write down 3 things that you did well or that you like about yourself and stick them to your mirror. And so then you see them over a period of time. I don't know, you might want to do a week or whatever, like today I did a very great job of brushing my teeth, if that's where you're at, that might be what you have. Or
yeah.
Or today I made a phone call to my friend and I feel like it was supportive to her and myself, or whatever, wherever you're at. And you can change the colors of the stickies and all kinds of things. So that's just my little tip.
That's a good one. I like that one. You can only do what you can with what you have where you're at, really, right? I think
That's
somebody's asked me to repeat the 4 things which give a full day. And again, we will be sending out all these some notes and some key ideas to everybody after this webinar. But what they said was every day I want to move, connect, create, and learn. And that makes a full day. So not necessarily in that order, in whatever order works for you, for sure.
I see that there's, well, on my screen, I can see 3 guys there. We've heard from Bill, and I see Dawn, and I see Farid. But I just wondered if, I just can't see the writing is small. I just was curious, because I mean, this probably won't be said properly, but I find that and especially women, if we are better at reaching out and connecting and asking for help and stuff, that if, you know, what would you guys do? What do you do, Dawn, for your emotional health?
Well, I definitely been using meditation in a big way the last, especially with everything going on the last 7 months or so, or 10 year, especially the last few months. Meditation, breathing, like what Kathy was talking about, the 4-7-8 breathing, I think Brenda was talking about, and Teresa, but it's that's huge for me because the anxiety is big, and yeah, so it really helps. It just brings me to a calmer place and helps me to center my, ground me. So I think that's a big one. And then reaching out to people as you can right now, whether it's a virtual coffee or whatever. I think that's what I've found has been really important, and connecting with family. Yeah, so all those things, but definitely the grief and loss. I really enjoyed Teresa's presentation. Really important for so many people in so many situations, right? So excellent. So that's what I can share as a guy.
What about you, Farid? Nice to meet you. Nice to see you. What have you been doing to stay emotionally healthy? Not to put you on the spot there, my dear, but.
And it's nice to meet you too, Brenda. First of all, I should mention that I am devoid of any emotion. I'm emotionless. No, that's not.
Sure, I know that sounds right.
Not at all. I work in an industry where emotions quite often overwhelm me, as most of you can agree to. Yeah, first of all, I'm a big fan of yours, Brenda, so I'm here joining you. But when it comes to de-stressing or relaxing, I choose, bar none, there's only one thing that rescues me and saves me, and it's music. I'm a singer, songwriter, guitar player. I play in a little trio right now called the Geezer Pleasers. We play right here at Orchard Gardens, and we're looking for other communities to share the love with. We're not really the Geezer Pleasers. We call ourselves that. I don't think it's appropriate to advertise that, but yeah, most people do have a sense of humor, as I can see all of you do as well. Yeah, so music is my go-to thing. Music, poetry, and my wife.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you so much for sharing. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, I think our time is pretty much up here. So again, thank you everybody for joining us today and for sharing your thoughts, and yeah, just for helping us and each other stay emotionally healthy. Yeah, we have our next webinar coming up. It's all about senior living and thinking about making that decision, and that's going to be in the middle of March. You'll probably get a notice about this too, but you can always sign up on our website anytime and share. Those of you who work in senior living might want to think about sharing that with some of your prospective residents as well, because that will be a really good one. Judy and Kathy are going to be working on that, and Judy, I know from experience, having worked with her, is amazing in the realm and her knowledge about senior living. So really looking forward to that. So yeah. Again, thank you everybody for coming out and joining us today. Stay safe, be kind, and stay well. And we'll see you hopefully in March. Okay.
Thanks,
Bye.
Brenda. Thanks,
Thank you very
Teresa.
much. Excellent.